Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I'd like to continue on with our discussions on 1970s disaster movies. And I'd like to focus our attention, if I may, on another very special film, this time from 1973. And the director is Shiro Moritani. This is a film that was also produced by Tomoyuki Tanaka and Osamu Tanaka, with special effects directed by Teruyoshi Nakano. And this is based on a story by Sakyo Komatsu, and the screenplay is by Shinobu Hashimoto. And it has another wonderful, stellar cast, included in which are Keiju Kobayashi, Hiroshi Fujioka, Ayumi Ishida, and Tetsuro Tamba, and others. This is the film from Japan. The version that I will be relying on is the Japanese language version. It is known in Japanese as Nihon Chinbotsu, and sometimes it can be referred to in English as Submersion of Japan, or The Submersion of Japan, or Japan Sinks. Now, as I say, this is the Japanese Blu-ray release that I have, so this is the Japanese language version, approximately 144 minutes. Now, I know that there's also an English language version of this, which I think goes under the title of Tidal Wave. And but for purposes of my discussion, I will be relying on the Japanese language version. Again, Nihon Chinbotsu, Tidal Wave, Submersion of Japan, Japan Sinks. Sometimes that's referred to under that title in English. But this is the film from 1973. And this version, the Japanese language version, I understand is approximately 144 minutes, 144 minutes. The film is essentially about the island nation of Japan and the government and the operations and the scientific groups or community or teams that are essentially trying to determine to what extent the seismic activity, the geologically based seismic activity that affects the island nation of Japan, to what extent will this cause significant damage and harm and destruction and disaster to the various communities here, and to what extent that will happen, and what will the possible consequences be of that. And so we have various forms of seismic activity, and earthquakes and the like, and it also involves the nation, the island nation, and its relation to the water level and what the scientific teams, communities' findings are. And when the disasters strike, we see in operation the way in which, say, government forces try, in vain perhaps, to prevent further disaster, to protect as many people as possible, and to deal with the situation. But however, unfortunately, when disaster strikes, it really strikes. And when all is said and done, there are even more problems of greater magnitude, both in terms of potential disasters going forward that we get a hint at and we see the possibilities of, both in terms of the progress of the story and also the development of the special effects sequences that we see. We also see the geopolitical and sociological and diplomatic consequences of the various types of operations and rescue plans and operations that the Japanese government is trying to carry out in order to save as many people as possible. So this is a widespread disaster or potential disaster that has many levels of operation, and it has a macro level and also has a micro level, because we see the intimate nature of the various characters that we meet. the very scientific-based characters, and also people in government. There are also citizens that we meet that have a vested interest in the findings of the scientific community and what it has in store for the possibility of some kind of major disaster or disasters hitting Japan. And embedded in this, or intertwined in this, we have the various stories of discovery, of the need to inform the public, the ability or inability of leadership to cope given the sudden circumstances, certain mysteries around other people in the citizenry, a type of drama or melodrama, a type of soap opera aspect that's also involved in the proceedings. And it's ultimately an epic scope type of disaster story that involves many sets of disasters and many special effects sequences of the carnage and the chaos and the destruction that are very much, on the one hand, of a type of there's a science fiction type of element to it in terms of exploration and submarine activity and the further discovery of various situations that could lead to further panic and destruction. And then when we see these actual disaster events being depicted in terms of, say, miniatures and optical effects and the like, it actually is very effective. Some of the sequences are very shocking. Some of them are quite sudden, out of the blue, and very violent and vivid and quite direct in terms of their impact. And we see how the leadership and how the various structures of administration and operation try their very best to deal with various situations. And we see the short-term effects and the mid to long-term effects of the various disasters that are both discovered and also predicted, and that may or may not come true given a certain space of time. And when we see how these characters that we have come to know along the way, the scientists, the people in leadership, etc., when we see how they are each affected, and in the context of this widespread panic that affects the entirety of the nation, a nationwide set of panic situations, when we see the intimate nature of the characters and how they are dispersed, or how they are connected, or how they have to work together or are separated apart, and what those eventual outcomes of character arc development are, I think we come to realize that this is a film that is so epic in scope and wide-reaching in terms of its disaster impact that we are in for quite the ride indeed when we were watching the film in English, or known in English as The Submersion of Japan. Now, in that description, I must, I hope I made it clear that there are many aspects to this film. Now, I indicated that the disaster action set pieces or sequences or special effects are done in terms of use of miniatures or use of effects and the like, and they are all very effective, sometimes quite shocking, sometimes quite gory, and all for this type of effect, which is potentially very dark and very sinister in terms of the consequences of these disasters that we see depicted. And then also we see the bureaucratic machine at work, as well as various committee level types of meetings in terms of how to what the determinations are as to the potential outcomes of disasters that could erupt or could arise, and what are the plans in order to deal with various situations. And when one plan fails, what are the backup plans? And if we have to rely on the backup plans, what are the consequences for the people, both on, as I say, the micro level and on the macro level? And believe me, we feel the effects on both levels so well in terms of how this is expressed in the cinema here, in this special effects extravaganza film. It's known in Japanese as a tokusatsu film, or a film that relies on special effects to provide its spectacle. And believe me, the spectacle is there and then some. There is also, I think, part of this disaster film element in terms of the intimate portraits of character that we see. We come to meet specific characters in question. The Hiroshi Fujioka character, the Ayumi Ishida character, Keiji Kobayashi's character, of course, and also Tetsuro Tamba makes a very memorable appearance, and other characters, of course, other performers. And we get to know their interests, their concerns, their relationships, how they are related, what their relationships are with each other, and what their eventual outcomes are. And we feel their struggles, and when things happen to them, we can really sympathize or empathize with their plights and their situations. There's also elements of the corny and the campy and somewhat of the cheesy, and maybe that comes through, for example, in the way that the drama or the melodrama aspects play themselves out. But this is part of the charm. This is part of the entertainment value that we see in films like this, and this is, I think, exemplified ever so well in a film like Submersion of Japan, Nihon Chinbotsu. And so I really want to emphasize that this is a great example, a really, really great example of the disaster film from Japan, epic in scope, spectacular in terms of its reach, and it's devastating in terms of what it really can potentially depict with its special effects sequences, combined with the dramatic tension and soap opera dynamics that make for an overall splendid and riveting and compelling work from this particular era. This is a disaster movie par excellence, and it is very famous here in Japan and also in the context of cinema from this era, I should dare say. And it's called, in English, Submersion of Japan, sometimes known as Tidal Wave, and it is known in Japanese as Nihon Chinbotsu. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.